Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Eric. I am the COO at Hill Country Tech Guys. Along with me is Whit Eric. He is the CEO. And back in February or March, maybe April, we decided that there was a lot of information that needed to get out to our customers and anybody else that wanted to know about IT changes that were going to be happening, especially with the remote workforce going so strong. And what kind of started as like trying to get information as fast as we can kind of turn into this, we just feel like it's time to get some information out and something that we can be putting out there as education for anybody who wants to learn about their IT infrastructures and things to double check and look at. So that was a lot more than normal.
That's cool.
I'd say. If you want to look at our past webinars, they are on our blog site, and you can kind of scroll through. I kind of try to put titles in there for you to know what about we were talking about. But if you also just have any questions, throw me a line. I might be able to tell you which webinar might be talking about it or get you to somebody that can answer the questions you're really wanting to know. Our next webinar is the third Thursday of the month, which is November 19th, the week before Thanksgiving. We making sure that that's going on before that, when we'll probably be talking about the second part of security. The first part we're talking about today, and the second will tell you what we're going to be talking about and kind of how that's going to look next time, unless I get trumped. It happens sometimes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And if there are any specific questions, you can enter in the chat. You can interrupt us if we feel like we can answer that separately. We might tell you we'll talk with you later, but otherwise just talk to us about it. We don't mind this being more of a conversational thing. And then normally I say this on the last slide and I forgot, but we do record it, and that's also my reminder to Whit to start recording it.
Yep, it's already going. Thank you.
Great. And so just to let you know, we'll refrain from saying any company names or anything like that, but we do record it so that we can put it on our website.
Yeah, and we do try, if we know you and we've had a relationship with you, we do allow you to speak and stuff, and we don't. I'm sorry, we kind of like to protect ourselves. We've learned our lessons with that. Feel free to reach out. Let's talk sometime, and we'd love to hear from you. So, but you can always chat us. So anyway, cybersecurity, right? It's like everybody everywhere is talking about it, at least if you're in tech, and if you're in high security tech or high compliance, it's definitely like, it's big. And the reason is everybody's changed just about everything with COVID. We've all, started working from home. We've added things to our solution stacks. Like we talked about in other videos, everybody's got all these new tools, and that's how they're getting their jobs done right now, right? But what always seems to fall behind, right, is securing it, protecting it, right? So we've taken, we actually started our cybersecurity plan last year or even before that, and how we're going to start implementing and doing a more in-depth plan. And we've been doing it kind of piecemeal up to this point and allowing people to do parts and pieces and kind of doing need-specific type stuff. But now it's come to the point where we're going to raise the level in our organization. We're going to raise the level to what our minimum standard is, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. These are all words that you kind of hear when you think about, cybersecurity and bad and good. And there's some of these, there's more to cybersecurity than just this stuff. But it's a lot of it's scare tactics. A lot of times people will say, and a lot of it's real. I mean, I've been in this industry for 14, 15 years. And I remember the first time back 12 years ago, I got an alert from a server, something weird. I think it was low disk space. I got up and looked, and some guy had gotten on one of my customer servers and was trying to host videos, like he does pirated videos, right? But, way back then, I remember the person like, oh my gosh, well, how did this happen? And then, that was the beginning of me having to figure out this. And, anyone that tells you that's perfectly protected, they're just clueless. There's no perfect protection. You're just adding layers. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about those layers to add protection between all of these things and all these attack types, these vectors that people have to get into your system. So I said we have a new standard for security, and that's in our company. We're trying to set a new standard for what our minimums are, because what was a minimum is just not enough anymore. And we're going to talk about like that. And just some easy tips and tricks. Not all this stuff has to cost money. A lot of times there's simple policies and procedures are what you need. And that's the first level. Like, we have people come to us, what do I got to do to secure this and this? And they're like, well, maybe we start with the password policy that's free. And then we worry about putting a SOC or a NOC or spending a ton of money, because If you leave your front door wide open, there's all the tools are going to do is say, hey, they got in, and there they go, right? So, there's definitely some free stuff we should talk about first, or not even free. Nothing's free, right? Policies, procedures, steps we can take. These all might be familiar looking pictures, right? And, we like to think about security like your house, right? You think at home, oh, I'm secure. I lock my doors, and my windows are locked. And these are all layers, right? You have the lock on your door is a layer, and then the lock on your windows is a protection layer. And then you might add some more, right? You got the little hotel style slide lock, and you got cameras. I'm secure with my cameras. And of course, you got your fearless looking dog. Literally, that dog picture got there because you thought he was cute. So that's how that happens. And then you have your security system, right? You have your active alarm with humans on the other side monitoring it. And then, if you're in Texas, you might have a pistol on your nightstand. It's just as an optional thing, right? So we have our layers for home security. We do that. People tend to do it. Now, I mean, I live out in the country, and it's, highly likely I don't lock my doors. I do have a camera system, but on a day-to-day basis, we're gone maybe for an hour. We don't worry about it, right? Because it's the risk reward thing. We all have that. You live in town, you may be higher risk, right? So you have more of the layers. So everybody's got their own personal thing they do for their home, and your business should be the same. We should have these layers of protection that make you a harder target and less likely to have situations. If we talked about the default or the current standard, I don't know how many other competitor quotes I see, and they're like, we have you a firewall, we're going to back you up. I don't know why I got a Texas draw accent there, but
I know that went real strong, real fast there.
It really happened. I caught it there and turned it off. In antivirus, right, you're protected. You have these things. Wow, I'd say, yeah, you're protected to the standards of a few years ago, right? But the bad guys have gotten smart. In COVID, they've gotten smart, and they realize that you're operating outside of these things potentially. You're operating on your home PC or on your cell phone or on just a random PC where you've logged in the company portal. They realize that the default, the standard protection is no longer valid, right? They're going to go beyond that. And then, so there's literally thousands of different tools out there and thousands of different, what you would call standards. And I'll tell you, if you think you're going to make compliant with every standard, you're going to go broke, right? The government, no one is compliant. They have all these, but our goal is to find what other things we can do to give us a large protection scope, like to give us the biggest bang for our buck, where we see the biggest vectors. And I'm not just talking in our organization. I'm talking about coming from, statistics and security authorities, how are we seeing the majority of these businesses being affected and taken down? And so what layers do we need there to add up to fill those gaps? And I'll slow down here for a second, make sure everybody kind of understands this is the where we're at question segment. This is currently where we sit.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what Whit was saying, and is that we believe in a lot of other technical professions that we're talking to, especially in the security related field, there's not going to ever be one tool that protects you from everything. Because as soon as they bring out that one tool, then all of the hackers will go towards that one tool and try to find its weak point. And every software has its weak point. So what you're basically just trying to do is not be the common denominator. You're trying to prevent from being the easy pickings of security. And that's the layering approach. And I think that's why we went with the house, because is there anything that ever guarantees that nothing bad is ever going to happen to your house? No, but you do things like you put in, fire detectors, and you do these things that are building up the preventing or the decreasing the likelihood. That's what I wanted to say, decreasing the likelihood of these things happening, or at least them being super detrimental. It's why we talk about backups so much, because if there's anything the one thing that you did to prevent your company from having damage to it, it's having really good backups. A backup device that goes to the cloud and it can be booted up virtually and things like that. All those things can really help your business continuity. So this is the start of the layers. It's not that they're bad. It's not that they're going away. It's that they're currently not enough anymore for that higher risk.
I'd say for just about anybody, but yeah. So here next, we'll talk about what we're calling our new standard, right? And you see the old stuff is still there, but we've added our new standard. And these are what we are going to be moving to as our minimum accepted. This is the lowest level where you can exist, right? And starting from the bottom, we have dark web monitoring, right? And, dark web monitoring is just simply watching the dark web for your domain and past end users associated to your account. Basically that someone has gotten a password to one of your users. Now, often it's like Facebook, but it's going to be some guy at yourdomain.com on Facebook, right? Well, what the bad guys know.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have slides that go into each of these details.
Oh, really? I totally forgot. All right, we're not going to do that. So we have each layer. I don't remember we did that or didn't. Okay, great. So we have these layers, right? We have our new core, and then we're talking about our advanced core. And then the advanced is where we have the active. And behind those, the big difference then is there's humans. There's artificial intelligence too, because if you didn't have that artificial intelligence, you would never survive those layers. And that's the stuff we're going to talk about in the next meeting, because it's pretty in depth, and we're going to have to really spend a lot of time not making it technical, but how these tools do what they do and why they're different. And, the funny thing is back 10 years ago, a lot of these things would just be considered antivirus, right? But the word antivirus has just become so overused, and so many different types that, you just not the same. So we break them out in different names and different things that they do. So phishing and security awareness training. So this is coming from one of the security authorities we work with, but 91% of your successful breaches begin with phishing. And phishing, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, is a person sends an email to an employee or someone faking to be or pretending to be something that they're not to gain access to your system. Often
if I can re-clarify, this is part of that new core standard that you're basically saying will be the new, what everybody will be having as these basic things in the next few years. This is what you'll see the majority of people adopting as their security measures. All those in orange is what we're going to be going through.
Yeah. So this is the first one. This is really the biggest one. And you said such a big bang for a buck out of this one, but there's a reason we have them all together, and we'll talk about that. But they click on it and they either download a file, and there it goes, right? Your people it seems like poor people in HR, right? Because they're receiving files, they're expecting files, maybe, so they're like number one place. Oh, I clicked on this resume and it wasn't a resume. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. So anyway, learning how to review those things, find they're bad, and these tools they don't do anything other than train your employees on what to look for, to double check that the domain name is spelled correctly, right? To hover over the link and make sure it actually is going to where it says it's going, right? And to convince you that no one is trying to give you $1 million. No one is trying to do that, right? All of these things go through that and help you and explain that. And it also gives you a quantifiable way, right? It wouldn't do any good to randomly just try to phish people without knowing what was happening. So not only does it try to phish them, and we use templates and a lot of things to get it done, but it also lets you know who clicked on it and how far they went. Some phishes are just, the testing is just like clicking on a link and you failed. Some of them, it's you clicked on a link and they entered credentials. And that kind of phishing attack is like, hey, this is Office 365. Please give me your credentials so I can give you this encrypted file. But it's actually not Office 365, it's something else, right? So they'll actually fake those things to try to teach your users. And then when the user clicks on it, we get to step back and say, hey, here's the training on how to recognize the phishing attack that you just became vulnerable to. It also has a pre-training part, and we also recommend an annual refresh. And the videos, they're some of the best of the company we're partnered up with. They're not too dry. They have a little bit of comedy in it, try to keep it entertaining, right? And this is, well, I have antivirus, I don't need anything else. And that's why the next statistic comes in there. 75% of companies have antivirus, and they still get infected because your typical antivirus just can't keep up with the amount of variants that are coming out there. The bad guys just know he's running. They actually don't know what antivirus they're using and target around it. There's databases of that information out there also. So that's gone. So you really have to protect those end users and give them as much training as possible.
This is one of my favorite layers as well, because a lot of security, there's no real data that says that you're doing the right thing in security, except for the lack of issues. Mm-hmm. But this is the one layer that I can really say that will provide reports that your company is safer, because it will give you that initial report of the people that clicked on things and entered credentials or whatever, and you'll see that trending. So there's some proven data that you can be providing that this is making the company as a whole safer.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen companies come in with like 80% click-through rate. So that means like 80% of the organization clicked on the phishing attack. And then over time and training, you know, you see it get better. If you don't, that's great. Now we can tweak the training, and or maybe see it's in a particular department that we need to help or whatever, right? You can use the data to get better at it, which is so awesome. There's such a clear, you know, cause and effect with this tool that it's very powerful because of that. DNS scanning and filtering. It's been around forever, but we feel like it's such a powerful tool because it has multiple benefits. One, we can use it to control content that's allowed to your organization. So not only can we prevent the bad stuff, we can also say this employee is only allowed to go to this website, et cetera. And we can also see how often they go to those websites. And even if you don't want to control what your employees go to, but the way that DNS works, it's like if you're calling up information and information said, no, that's not a safe phone number, I'm not even going to let you call it. So it prevents you before you even get to it. So it's super powerful because we're not having to like antivirus works by blocking it when you touch your PC, whereas DNS filtering can block it before your PC even sees it. And back in the early days of crypto, this was one of the earliest, easiest ways to stop it, because how crypto works is once it gets on your computer, one of the things it does is that call out to a server on the internet to get the crypto key. And if it can't get the crypto key, it doesn't encrypt you. So it's an early layer but we love it for that. It provides such a, if you can't get to the bad stuff, you're obviously not going to get the bad stuff, right? So it's super good to have this simple, easy layer. And it's also able to be deployed in a way that protects mobile users, on-site users, gives you a really nice, deep protection. Very, very easy to deploy too. So we like it for that.
And it's very functional. The majority of the filters that we get requested to enable, beyond the basics, we get tons of social media and other media like Netflix and stuff to be blocked and things from the environment, which it's super functional for that too. I feel like it's also just candid to say that we've been able to use this at our home too. There's home versions of this for anybody that has children. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy way to set up in your home. Most homes, it's pretty easy to set up where you have these filters applied to your home networks. They actually have there's completely free ones to block you from just the bad stuff that you can use, but they don't go as in depth, and you don't have the ability to protect like laptops and stuff with it. So you kind of have to go to the paid version to get the full. They know what they're doing. Dark web scanning, right? The ominous guy on the internet that's selling your information to other people, right? This is such a cool thing. I mean, it's been around forever. It's not rocket science, but if there's information about you on the dark web, about your passwords, you want to know. You want to have that information because you can respond to it. And so it's such a simple, easy thing to do, and we find great results with it. And typically, we can kind of tell how well a company's been doing of maintaining their security by how many hits they have. And it's simple things like encourage your employees to use their personal email for their personal social stuff. Don't use their work email, because YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, blah, 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 blah. Those guys get hacked. If they use the same password they use for YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, whatever, now they have access to your work network. But these tools will say, hey, Sarah at HC Tech Guys, she got a hit at Amazon.com. They got her password through a breach. And it often tells you where they got the password from. It's like known issue, whatever. And it also shows you, I think, the first 3 digits of the password. So you're able to see, that's my active password. I better go change it right now. And I think I've seen them hit within a day or two being discovered on the dark web. So also super incredibly easy tool to deploy. A lot of these tools have very low barriers of entry. And that's a big point. I just realized that you don't even have to have a network, an office to deploy these tools. They can be deployed on your cloud customers, your office, it doesn't really matter. All these tools apply and can be easily pushed out and give you some really good protection. So.
Yeah, and I think that's just easy to real quick to say. There's no avoiding being on the dark web, either personal or something. It's going to happen. So this is, we feel like, really important because now right? Now, the more security you have, the less hits that you have. But the reality is that I don't think we've scanned anybody that has had 0.
No.
So it's not like that you're, terrible at security if you're out there. You're someone in your company's out there. It's more or less knowing. And for instance, when we did this scan on us, one of my emails and passwords were on there that I had used about 5 years ago. So it's okay, good. We're cleaning up and changing passwords, which, little key plugin. That's why you change passwords.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these guys, going back to phishing training, you get a nasty email and it pops up and says, "Hey, give me your username and password." You do it, and nothing happens. She's like, "Huh, that's weird." You close it, but in truth, some shady guy with a good mustache has now put your data into a dark web report, and it's for sale, right? And that's what this tool does. This tool is going out, scanning those reports, and telling you, "Hey, your employee, your password, your information is sitting out there on the dark web available. You should probably change that." Yep.
I don't feel like it has to be a guy with a hoodie with a mustache. I feel like it could just be average people.
I mean, you could, but
That
look
was
at this guy.
specific.
He's got a great stash.
Okay.
Multi-factor authentication. Probably everyone these days, I would assume, has seen this with like their bank or their credit card or their home loan application or whatever. Even like, your car authentication, right? Where you put your password in and it texts you a PIN. You have to put that in there. Now you can drive your car or whatever, unlock your car. That's all multi-factor authentication. But, we need to bring it down into our organizations, right? Because, passwords, as we've kind of talked about, you got phishing and you got the dark web. Those are ways that they can get your passwords, right? And the password stays the same for some amount of period of time. Nobody changes their password every time they use it. I mean, that would be nuts. But that's exactly what this is. This is a password that you use that changes every time you use it. And typically, you got a little picture here of the infographic of a cell phone, right? And that's kind of how it works. There's other ways. But the idea is, right, you put your password in, and then you have to provide another device to say, "This is me. This is actually me. It's good to go." So we have like, your phone, and then I don't hope you can see this. This is a two-factor device also. So this is a very secure type of key. It's literally a key I can use to also two-factor to some things that I get to, right? And I plug it in my computer, and then it doesn't always work. I physically have to touch this little yellow button here when it's requested to activate it, so that, if I have to leave it in my computer, nothing can scan it or get that. And it's also a web service. There's no monthly fees associated with this key, but it's nice. It also has NFC. So if I'm on my phone trying to get to some of my sites, I can actually touch the NFC to my phone and it will authenticate me again too. So I don't obviously want, if it's something related to my phone, I don't want the two-factor on my phone to let me in. So I have this two-factor so that I have to have my phone and this, right? Always focusing on having two things that are isolated to give us that protection. And that's multi-factor. We try, it's not possible to turn it on for everything, but we really need to look at the application set you're using and choose which multi-factor authentication tools work the best to give you the most depth of coverage. So it's pretty cool. Tips and tricks, right? This is the
So cool. Can I go back to the sorry. I feel like this is the biggest pushback we get from clients because it requires an extra step to log into things. And if you walk away for 10 minutes, then usually all your stuff logs out and you have to come back and log in, and it causes those extra steps for everything. And I think that, I was talking to Jared a while ago, who's our security guy, and he was saying that security isn't convenience. When you leave your house and you have to lock your door and you have 3 locks on there, and then you have to set your alarm pad and stuff, it has these extra layers. The reason that it's not an easy one button is because it's not an easy one button for the bad guys either, right? So it's going to cause a little bit of a workaround, and just going into it expecting like that. Eventually, when you do it, you're not even going to realize that you're doing it. It's going to be part of your habits, but it will have an initial like learning curve of getting those things done.
And it's not all evil, depending on your goals and security levels. Some of the tools, and depending on, I can't say all of them, but they allow you to do things to whitelist things. For example, if you have a static IP at your office, you can say, at my office, I never want to use multi-factor, right? Because whatever, it's my office, my network is secure. I got secure Wi-Fi. If you're on network, I already have Active Directory authentication on my Wi-Fi or whatever. I don't need it when my users are at the office. But if they're at home or anywhere else, hit me with that two-factor, right? And some of them even have the ability to say, make me two-factor once a day, right? So that it says if you once a day you two-factor so that you're active today. And some I've even, levels I've seen, make me two-factor if my state or my geographic area changes. So that it that instantly forces a two-factor because all of a sudden you went from Texas to Oklahoma, and that doesn't, how'd you do that? Other living up North Texas, but whatever, it makes you can have some rules on it. So they're getting better and better with these tools, and it's kind of a evolving conversation about getting the security set up and getting those layers added. Yeah. Cool. Tips and tricks, right? So we broke this into two sections. We have their user security and your network security, and we're going to start with user stuff and kind of go through these one at a time here and see what we have, right? So replacing end-of-life hardware. Man, this is like people, why do I got to replace my firewall? Why do I got to replace my switch? Why do I got to replace my PC? What's wrong with Windows 7, right? Manufacturers simply cannot continue to update and patch devices. So once the device has been notated as the end of life, they are no longer patching it. Sometimes they will patch high vulnerability or high issue type things, but often they don't, right? So beyond the fact this piece of equipment's old and your business depends on the piece of equipment, that old piece of equipment is not getting manufacturer's updates. So you're not going to get consistent results out of it. You don't have consistent security. It's no longer being watched. Nobody's out there protecting you from that device being hacked or infiltrated some way. So you might say it's silly, but I remember a few years ago there was a big thing with printers. These printers, nowadays they give you a printer and it has Wi-Fi on it, right? Well, when they first deployed those printers, people figured out you could drive into a parking lot, connect to the printer's Wi-Fi, and use that to hop on the network inside. It's like no big deal, right? And you had to patch your printer to get that fixed, right? So if that printer is end of life, it'd be, it's not my problem. You're not going to get patched, right? So it does matter. It does matter to have that equipment inside the life. That's just one example, but it's definitely part of it, right? Backup is king, right? Well, the reason we bring this up is no matter what all these layers, right? No matter what all these things we're doing, bad things happen, right? So your backup is your catch-all, right? If you were going to draw the circle around all these tools, the backup is around it. When it all goes bad, you need your backup to be king. So having frequent conversations, the what, where, how often you're backing up, making sure you understand it's very important. And it's also important to not just do things without considering, but how am I going to back this up, right? I'm talking to a major group right now that they're moving to Office 65. They don't want to back up Office 65. And then I can show you the terms of use for Office 65. It says there is no backups whatsoever, right? So if your admin account, like every Office 65 has an admin account, that account gets hacked. That gives somebody the ability to go on there, select all, delete. Yep, delete. And that is gone, period, gone. So saying you don't need backups for something like that, you do. You need backups. And that's, your QuickBooks Online, right? If you have QuickBooks Online, unfortunately, there's no easy way right now to automatically back that up like there's Office 365, but you should go in there and download a backup every now and then. You can't trust QuickBooks Online. You need another copy, right? You got to protect your data. I try to encourage you. Think about it as your bank account, right? Would you only have one record of how much money you have? No, you expect to have registers of that, checks and balances. Same thing. This data is your money. This data is your livelihood. We have to protect that and know how it's being handled.
Yeah, I feel like this was a good thing that you brought up to me earlier about having conversations with your people about what's being backed up. Everybody in the organization should know what's being backed up because PCs are not generally backed up unless, that is something that you've specifically done. And so people will save stuff on their computer thinking everything's fine. And if anything happens to that computer, that data is generally gone. And that's something that we run into quite a bit. So it's having open conversations with your staff about what is being backed up and where to store the data that you want to be alive tomorrow.
Yeah, it's great if you can set up policies to automatically redirect the person's personal information, tools, and whatever to a server to back it up. But it doesn't always work because of the environment, right? Now, we have Office 365 with known file redirection. And that's awesome because, it lets you take any laptop and you can say, hey, back up my desktop, my DI documents, and just one other folder. I'm just throwing a blank, like pictures or whatever. And it automatically will sync those to your Office 365, right? You just got to click it, right? But clicking it, right? You got to talk to your IT team. We're going to click this. We're going to tell everybody to set that up. We're going to audit that to make sure that's done. It's a process. It's not, it has to be done, and you should be auditing and keeping up with it. So, man, this is a sensitive one, right? No general login accounts or shared emails. There's multiple reasons for this. I mean, we can go on forever, right? But, just in general terms. So we're talking about shared accounts, and accounts that, like copier one, right? You may need that account to have the copier be able to scan, but make sure you've gone in there and disabled that account from remote login. Disable that account from being able to VPN. Like, you can't just be blind to it. And also, don't use the word copier. Call it something else, like, puppy dog 99. That's the copier. So that, because I've literally watched the logs, and you can see the bad guys: copier one, printer, scanner. They try all the default words, and then they'll try password one, scan now, change me 1, 2, 3. They'll go through all these defaults. So your username can be almost as much as the password as your password, right? So not using the generic stuff is super powerful. At a doctor's office, having an email account called nurse, you feel like that's probably one they all try. Oh, it's a doctor. They have a nurse account, it's a doctor account. Let's try hacking those, right? So being mindful of that when you set it up to have some protection. Shared email accounts, man, they're super bad. People say, well, I want all these people to work these emails that come in to make these appointments or book these orders. Well, on multiple reasons. One, how do you control access? How do you know who's done what, right? How do you, it's just too much. There's too many people having their hand in that pot, right? Now, the next problem comes down to, not a security thing, I'll just tell you, it's in a management. How do you hold people accountable? How do you hold people accountable to do their job if they're all working out the same bucket of work? So the right thing to do is to set up a distribution group or a shared mailbox, and the people access that shared box. So it's a little bit different. It's a mailbox that you can't log into, but people have access to. It's an Office 365 term, but what we use that for is, like, nurse has to go schedule, order some materials. She'll see the email, she'll move it that she's done it. So you can have that tracking. That's more of a COO management type thing, whatever you want to call it, but then security. But shared accounts, they're bad, they're hard to manage, and it's hard to hold people accountable for sure. Password changes, right? This is everybody's bane of their existence. And, we spend a lot of time to get people to turn on password changes. Well, I don't want to change the password every 30, 90 days, but you need to. But they have devalued in the last few years how important it is to change passwords, right? They have notched it down because they're encouraging two-factor, but also encouraging you to use words that don't matter. Like, I was reading some articles about it, like the best passwords don't make any sense. Like watch, candy, dog, right? That's a great password in their book, right? But I'm going to stand there and say, 39 days, great. You need to do it 39 days. It's too easy. There's too many chances for your password to get out there and the bad guys get it. And the quicker you change it, changing your password could be the end of someone's access to your network. So every time you do that, you think, well, changing that password may kick that guy out. Now, in all truth, a lot of the good bad guys will use your password to get in, and then they create their own account, right? So you just to be straight up and honest, everybody, but it's your first detection. It's your first layer. It's the free layer, changing your password. Let's do it.
And if you're able to invest, a password management tool is a game changer.
Yeah, a lot of the good password management tools, like say your bank password, you should change that too. Why aren't we changing it? A lot of the good ones will tell you, hey, it's been this long since you changed this password. Let's change it now. And it's not a big deal because anyone else in your organization has a login to password management tool. They also have access to that password. They will get the updated password, right? I've got organizations that I'm trying to convince that they can't use Google Chrome's password save feature to manage their passwords. That's not a password management tool, guys. We got to go past that and get a real management of this, because the tools also let you set the complexity. So you go in the tool, you hit generate password, it gives you a random bunch of googly gobbly, and that's the new password. You don't want something people are memorizing because they just memorize and take it home or whatever. I remember a story of an organization we were helping that the CFO had a document on their desktop called passwords and left their computer logged in, and the cleaning people found it and started trying to draft money out of their account. They got real lucky.
I see that.
But
I see that a lot or they do PW, and it comes from a need of sharing passwords.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's why I threw that the whole thought of having a password management, because if you have passwords that people are needing to share, like the bank document, like the bank one that you described, there isn't really a really good way to do that, because if you're changing it every 90 days, then you're having to update everybody. So considering a password management tool is definitely the better way to do it than having any document on anybody's PC that lists all the passwords for the organization.
For sure. Phone, tablet lock, desktop screen policy lock. People ask me why this is important. I say, to give you one example, if your bank, right? If you forget your bank password, how do you reset it? Lost password. It emails you. It emails you, and then you click the little link in your email, and then you just enter a shared secret. Where'd you meet your wife? And I don't know, most of us probably have that saved in our website and our browser history. So it's making sure that people don't have access to those tools. You know, if your phone's locked, they can't get to your two-factor on your phone, right? So all those two-factor and all that stuff is only good as those tools, right? So having that stuff locked is an easy, simple step to put barriers between you and the bad guys. And sometimes the bad guys are the cleaning people coming in your office at night, or an employee, internal problems, right? I mean, that's, you know, every organization has probably seen it at some point when there's people
Or
that are
lost
nosy.
phones. I mean, that's the one that I think that we generally have a conversation with, is like, hey, they left their phone at the restaurant, and they didn't have, you know, a lock on it, and that has all of our emails and, you know, our shared drive and everything on it, and that's unfortunate at that point.
And really, there's another part of this we haven't talked about, as mobile device management. And mobile device management will force these things, and also forces, as an organization level, the encryption to be enabled on the phone. And that's the true step to compliance, right? Because then I can literally go and say, which phone got lost, but it had a password on it and it was encrypted. And here, I'm going to click remote wipe. And we don't ever where that phone, if that phone ever comes back online, it's going to get wiped. And also, I know the data unscripted. And that makes a lost cell phone what I like to call a non-newspaper event, right? If
That's right.
and that's one in HIPAA. If you ever had a HIPAA violation, one of the steps is you have to go publicly announce that if you're a patient here, you could have had part of a breach, and you know, whatever, or nothing happens. So you want to be nothing happens. That's the best. Right. So, yeah. Laptop or disk encryption. Well, this is just like your cell phone encryption, right? We want to encrypt the data on your computer, because just because they don't have your password, if the data on that disk is unencrypted, it just takes some simple tools to go in there and start browsing around and find out whatever I want. And even if you say, hey, my data's in the cloud, is all of it? Have you guaranteed that a user's never downloaded a list of all your patients as they search for patients born on a certain day or some certain medication? You can guarantee there's no Excel document with that information. You can't. So the way to protect that is encryption, right? Because once we're encrypted, those become a mute issue. And also be able to prove it, right? You just, you know, you can go in right now and say, encrypt my BitLocker, turn it on. But if I don't have the reporting behind it, the authorities won't care, just to tell you. It's worth turning all those on so we have the proof that which laptop was encrypted. Done. Okay, we have the proof where you see where it's been checking in encryption.
And I can't tell you if there how many times this has saved doctors in our organization. Like, I can't even count the amount of times that they've had to call us and tell us that, and it's a very specific story. Laptop stolen. That's what it is. Laptop stolen from car, laptop stolen from house, laptop stolen. And just how many times that has been a saver.
Yeah. I remember once where this office, this was back in the day of tape drives. I mean, so it's probably been 10 years ago. Car got broken into, and they took a bag that had the backup tapes in it, right? Well, you know, FBI came, and I had to, you know, luckily we had the proof to show them that all those backup disks were encrypted, right? And all that stuff's encrypted, and okay, great, thank you, great job, you know, done. And it was only because of that, it was over. So yeah, for sure. Network security, right? This is we're talking about this, we're talking about the things that your users are connecting to, right? So the servers and the network infrastructure. So everybody's got on wireless that requires a password, right? Well, the next level of that that's typically free is Active Directory integrating that. So what that means is, instead of you entering a password that never changes, you enter your domain credentials to get on. So one, I know who you are by that. And also, if you're changing that password every 30 to 90 days like you're supposed to, you're not continually giving access to the organization, right? You know, you fire the employee, do you change the Wi-Fi password every time you fire an employee, right? We probably should be, But this eliminates that. There's no set password that can gain you access to organization. You have to be authenticated in it. And you can set it typically for daily, weekly. So you don't have to sign your cell phone in every week, but whatever, every day, you can set schedules to it to make it all easier. And on like PCs, Windows PCs, it's all just seamless. You don't even know what's happening if it's set up completely. So it just does it. Firewall countries blocked. This is really the beginning of the talk with your firewall. But typical firewall is the port-based blocking, right? If you're not on the known port or IP, block it, right? But the newer, more advanced firewalls have different levels and tools. And one of the simplest ones is firewall countries block. We go in there and block Russia, China, Europe, whatever. I never talk to them. I never do business with them. Unfortunately, you can't say I never talk to Canada, because there is some things like Google. I don't know, tell you how many times you go to google.com, you're hitting a server over in Germany. I don't know why. We've seen it. You have to go do some whitelisting and some setup, but pretty easy tools to just literally limit who has access to you and thin it down. Now, yes, the bad guys have figured this out. They're using VPNs, but you're making it harder on them. You're making it now they have to get a VPN to connect to you, and they have to mask that they're in USA. It's about adding layers, and that's just an easy layer we see helping. So, privately registering your internet domain. This basically is a simple process when you get your domain of basically making it so all of who owns it is hidden from the internet. Simple, easy thing, but one, I like it because it stops you from getting some solicitation calls, because without this, there's a phone number on there and they're going to call it. But it's also good to give you some anonymity on the internet, who you are, where you are, and to limit the amount of information the bad guys have to work with you. Segmented Wi-Fi. This is as simple as saying, I have trusted devices and I have untrusted devices. Now, the modern standard is actually 5 different networks, I believe. Jared, I don't remember all of them. Jared sets it up, right? But we have your company-owned devices, you have your employees network, and then you have a guest Wi-Fi. And there's even two more, I forget. I think one's like equipment. But basically, splitting your network into different segments. And Wi-Fi is a special thing because obviously you can pull up outside and have access to an organization or be near. So we have to pay extra protection of that and give us more layers there. And that's what we're doing by segmenting that Wi-Fi, who has access to what zone. And then once you're on that zone, you can control employees on the inside Wi-Fi can print and get to the internet, but they can't get to my server, because why would an employee on their cell phone need to get to my server, right? But then an employee that's on the employee-owned network equipment, they can get to everything, right? And having that separation. Typically, that's just a matter of configuration. If you have a modern access point, you can make these things happen pretty quick.
Can I tell our personal story on that one too?
Oh,
real quick. We also brought this into our house because you don't want your kids, when you're at home working, on the same Wi-Fi as you are for many reasons. But if they're downloading something and getting a virus, I don't want mine on the same internet as them.
Yeah, and a part of our work from home structure, we actually segmented it on home because we deal with so much, high security stuff. We isolated it. And it also gave us the ability that, at I think 10 p.m., whatever, our kids' Wi-Fi just turns off. So that's a whole little parenting hack right there. They can't get on the Wi-Fi if it's off. But we did that, and it was easy, right? It takes a little time. So, annual security and vulnerability assessments, right? We love these, right? Because it should involve a third-party tool or a third party in general. Like there's obviously different levels of this, but sitting back and analyzing what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it on some regular schedule is very important. You can find so many vulnerabilities and weaknesses in your plan that often I'll have these guys have an assessment coming, let's get all these things ready. I'm like, well, one, if you knew they were wrong, why are we not fixing them, right? Let's talk about that. And two, it's best to have the policies and procedures and do it all the time and let these assessments come make you better, right? That's the point, is to find the weaknesses and vulnerabilities. So, it's okay. It's okay to have an assessment. That's the point, right? And if you have a lot of vulnerabilities, let's make a remediation plan and rerun the assessment. Let's improve and get it better. The super powerful tool. A lot of times there are uses the scare tactic. You'll have a company come in, let me do a free assessment, right? Well, I'll tell you, that they're coming in there and they have all the checkboxes turned on. They're going to find stuff that doesn't even matter. So you got to be careful with that, but it's important. And then have a conversation. Is it actually a risk to me? What does it mean? What will it take to remediate it and moving that forward, right? Not just, it doesn't prove whether or not someone's doing a good job, unfortunately. It's more complicated than that. Office 365. same kind of concept is up there. We can literally block where you can log in. We're not talking about where you can receive email, although you can do that too. We're talking about where you're allowed to check your email from. It's pretty specific on how that works. And being able to say that, you know, for example, like you're a nurse in the doctor's office and you're supposed to check the email when you're at work, you can turn it off so you can't get to it, but anywhere but at work. And now passwords, none of that matters because it's saying you're not at the office. I'm not going to let you try. So that's, you know, taking the password out of the equation. It's great, right? So, and a lot of your applications have that same thing too, where you can, you know, if your EMR is cloud-based, say, hey, I only want these employees to be able to log in from this IP. That's it. Hopefully they can do that. You know, a lot of them can, a lot of them can't. You know, it all depends. Maybe they support two-factor, and you can use the two-factor tool to lock that. Sometimes that's a capability. It's a conversation you're going to need to have, but it's powerful.
That's a good point, that this is not just Office 365, but any major applications that you're using, reviewing their securities and seeing if there's anything that you can lock down, and anything that you don't need, you block down. So if you don't need access from other countries, you lock it down.
Yeah. The most annoying one is unprobable travel. I mean, that's an Office 365 feature, but it basically says that someone travels a distance they're not expected to, lock it down. I have some customers that have their own jet. They set it off every now and then, but normally for normal people, that's not a problem, right? It works very well. And, you know, often we'll say, hey, just let me know what countries you're going into, and we can go in there and whitelist the country. So it's not going to be an issue for you. It works like a third of the time. You think they know where they're going, but they don't. Fail over ISP. So, you know, your ISPs are also targets, right? And they're also, you know, their denial of service things are a real thing, right? So having a secondary ISP, not only is it good for just keeping your network up and maintaining a good quality of service for your users, it's also good for security. It's good to have that backup plan, that second ISP for additional coverage in case something bad happens to your ISP. It's a win-win. It's not, you don't typically think about it like that, but we do consider it part of a security package to have backup internet connections for a large organization. There we go. We made it.
It feels like a whirlwind. Feels like we talked so fast.
I did apologize. I talked fast, but look, we went way over time anyway.
You had to get through so much. So thank you guys. So next time I'm planning on talking about active security, and that's the other package. And actually, if you are at all a nerd like I am, you're gonna freak out. It's so cool, the AI technology that comes into security and what they're able to do. And so we'll be showing as much as we can about what those look like, and why people that are really concerned about their security or need that extra security line, why it's just we don't feel like we can have a stack without having some of these guys in our back pockets here. And it will be on November 19th at 4 p.m.
Is this the one where you want me to do a live hack?
I would love for you to do a live hack. It was so cool the last time I saw it, and it would be really great.
I thought that was coming.
If we could see that again.
Yeah, I have to get my act together, rebuild it. Yeah, for sure. It's pretty cool. We can create the infection. You can see the tools detecting it, trying to move around, and see it isolated. It's the back end. It's pretty amazing stuff. So yeah, for sure.
It would be pretty cool. Anyways, we hope to see you guys then. And again, you can go onto our website, look at our blogs for any of our other webinars, and always feel free to call us, talk to us, and ask us questions.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Sorry it went long. Hope you valued it. Have a good day.